I'm Brooke Stratton, dual Olympic finalist, and you're listening to the Physical Performance Show.
And the winner is...
Failure is not an option.
I've had my ups and my downs.
I think it's an absolutely breakthrough experience.
Welcome to the Physical Performance Show, the show designed to inspire the pursuit of your physical best performance. I'm your host, Brad Beer. Listen in as we delve into how the world's top physical performers achieve their success, as well as the highs, the lows, and the journey of getting there. Let's get ready, set, let's go. Welcome to episode 298 of the Physical Performance Show, brought to you by Polar's world-leading GPS watches and heart rate monitors, and the Polar Vantage V2 Premium Multi-Sport Watch, built on decades of scientific research to create Polar's most formidable sports watch to date. I'm Brad Beer, sports physiotherapist and exercise scientist by trade and training, and founder of Pogo Physio. Each week we'll bring you the latest and greatest information and inspiration designed to help you perform at your physical best. And of course, we do this across a range of our different episodes: expert editions, interest editions, coaches' corners, learn-ins catch-up episodes, and of course, our popular featured performers. And hot off the back of last week's expert edition, a Q&A with repeat guest of the show, UK-based sports dietitian and author Rinny McGregor, exploring fueling the endurance athlete, a Q&A session. Get set to enjoy the highs, lows, and learnings from Australia's Brooke Stratton, 4 times Australian long jump champion, national record holder, and dual Olympic finalist. By way of bio, Brooke Stratton commenced her little athletics career at the age of 5, winning the under 9 Years Victorian State Title before commencing on to Junior World Championships and a successful Junior Worlds career before entering the senior ranks. And as you'll hear Brooke outline today, it has been full, as with any journey, of highs, lows, and plenty of learnings. More recently, in Tokyo 2021, Brooke was an Olympic finalist, finishing 7th place with a jump of 6.83 metres, where Brooke later commented that she could walk away with a head held high, knowing that she gave it her all. You see, in the lead-up, Brooke was dealing with a troublesome knee injury, which she elaborates on today, and in the prior years, Brooke had struggled with her health with regards to diagnoses around celiac disease and also Hashimotos. This is a great tale of overcoming and persevering. You'll enjoy as Brooke recounts how she prepared for Tokyo, knowing that she was less than her best in the pursuit of one's physical best performance. So get set for some highs, lows, and learnings. Here is my conversation with Brooke Stratton, national long jump record holder and dual Olympic finalist. Let's jump right in. Brooke Stratton, 4 times Australian long jump champion and oceanic long jump record holder, dual Olympian. Welcome to the Physical Performance Show.
Thank you so much, Brad. Excited to be here.
Well, we first connected via your husband, Nathan, who reached out just off the back of your recent knee challenge and subsequent surgery. And as I looked into your story, Brooke, I thought, my gosh, you will be much loved by the Physical Performance Show audience. We theme this show, as you know, the highs, lows, and learn-ins. And you've had plenty of both of the highs and lows and a bucket load of learn-ins along the way. So, Brooke, you've come off the back of Tokyo. Maybe we start there with how Tokyo, your campaign went, and what's happened in the months post.
Yeah, so as you touched on, I've had a niggling knee injury. It was, really sore for almost about 9 months leading into Tokyo, and it was really all about just managing that so I could get to Tokyo in the best shape possible. But yeah, it was a huge challenge there, and training had to be modified quite significantly, and went into Tokyo knowing that I was quite underdone and I hadn't really had the preparation that I wanted. But yeah, walked away placing 7th in the long jump final with a distance of 6 metres 83, which I think was about my 5th furthest jump ever in my career. So something to be really proud of. And yeah, obviously, as I said, with the lead in, it wasn't what I had of hope for. So it was also the most competitive long jump final in Olympic history. So to have been a part of that was, it was amazing. And yeah, post Tokyo, came home, had an MRI on my knee just to try and get on top of what exactly was going on. And yeah, I had a tear in the trochlear cartilage under my kneecap. I also had quite an inflamed ITB and bursa that sits under the ITB. So went in for surgery about 7 weeks ago now, and yeah, had the cartilage repaired, had ITB release surgery, and also had the bursa removed underneath the ITB. So nothing too major, but enough to hopefully put me back on track and, just get through this rehab and recovery phase. And hopefully that will put me in good stead for next season.
With next season at the time of recording being 2022 and the Commonwealth Games, not World Championships or World Championships?
Yeah, there is a World Championship.
Yeah, everything. All the calendar's been disrupted, obviously, with the postponement of the Olympics. And then onwards from there, I imagine looking ahead to Paris 2024.
Yeah.
Which would hopefully be a third Olympic campaign.
Yeah, that's the plan. Next year's going to be a huge year. There's also a World Indoor Championships that's sort of thrown in the mix as well, which is in March next year. So, yeah, there's going to be a lot going on, and I think it's going to come around really quickly too, based on how fast time's flying at the moment. Yeah, and then obviously 2023 is a World Championships, and then 2024 Paris Olympic Games. So, yeah, there's a lot going on over the next few years, but it's really exciting.
Very condensed calendar. And with your Olympic outings, I think what's uncanny is this Olympic final in Tokyo, as you say, was the most competitive in Olympic history. You also finished 7th in Rio, if I'm correct, in your debut Olympic Games. So there's that number 7 on your back, Brooke, which I'm sure as you look ahead, you are wanting to shake that one off.
Yeah, it's interesting having placed 7th in both Rio and Tokyo. The great thing about Tokyo was I did jump a little bit further. I think just being a little bit more of a competitive field, yeah, that's sort of how things panned out. But yeah, hopefully with Com Games, World Championships and a few major championships on the cards over the next few years, we can go a little bit better.
And we should point out, and as per the bio, that you had great success at the Commonwealth Games here on the Gold Coast in 2018, picking up the silver medal. We ask this of all guests, featured performers, Brooke, and that is a career highlight. What and why? What would be your career highlight? Would the Com Games silver medal be the highlight or something else?
Yeah, I find this a really difficult question to answer. There's obviously been a lot of highlights in my career, and it's really hard to pinpoint just the one highlight. I'd probably have to say winning the silver medal at the Commonwealth Games. It's been the first championship where I've actually won a medal, and to have been a home games on the Gold Coast here in Australia, having my close friends and family in the crowd, like nothing beats that. It was just such a special time, and to be able to share it with the rest of Australia and, as I said, my close friends and family, it was really special.
And the 2016 national record where you jumped 7.05 metres to beat a 14-year standing national record, that must have been quite thrilling as well. National records are special, right?
Yeah, 100%. It was definitely not something I thought that I'd be able to achieve so early on in my career. In 2016, I think at the time I was 23 or 22, almost turning 23. And I knew I still had a lot of developing to go. I knew that I wasn't quite at my peak either. So to have jumped that distance and break that Australian record that stood at 7 metres. I honestly couldn't believe it. It took a long time for that to sink in, but it's something that I'm incredibly proud of, and hopefully one day in the near future I can get back to jumping those sort of distances.
Brooke, I was reading around the genesis of that record, and if my reading is correct, you'd been on a 5-week roll at the start/maybe end of 2015, early 2016, where you jumped 5 weeks consecutively, and it just kept creeping up, and then it apexed with the national record. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. I guess on the back of World Championships in 2015, I learnt so much about myself as an athlete, and there was so much room for improvement. And I just came home from those championships after missing the final narrowly. Yeah, I was just so motivated to really try and work on the things that needed to be worked on to gain those extra centimetres in the sandpit. And that's what I did. I started off 2016, and every competition I was doing just seemed to get better and better, and I was jumping PB after PB, and that was just instilling a lot of confidence in myself, and that self-belief was at an all-time high, really. And when I got over to Perth after jumping a 694 metre jump in Canberra a few weeks prior, I remember being on the phone to Nathan, my partner, just saying to him, like, I'm going to jump huge today. Like, I know that it's in me. Like, I know I can do it, which is so weird because I've never, ever been so confident in myself and my ability. But I just knew after having so many consecutively great performances, it was just really building on that confidence.
Those days where you just have a sense that something great's going to happen, if you reflect on the lead into that, was there anything different around that time that you were doing that you've tried to since emulate again, or what created that purple patch, do you think? You said your self-belief and confidence was really high. That probably can't be overstated enough. I imagine in your sport, it's a bit different to going out for, say, the marathon where you've got X amount of hours to shake off the nerves and find your form. But on the day, but for you, it starts from that takeoff, right? That run in. Yeah,
definitely. I think I just had a really consistent block of training and a really solid block of training leading into the 2016 season. As I said, I was able to put time aside to really work on the little things that were going to get me those extra centimetres. One thing in particular was my takeoff position, and just really ensuring that I was taking off in a nice upright position and not hesitating for the board and just really running through and off the board. So just being able to put all that together reflected in some of those big jumps I was able to achieve. And even in training, some of my testing was just going through the roof, and some of my short approach jumps were, the best they'd ever been. So yeah, you can really just take confidence from that, and all you can really do is just take that into competitions. When
you say, Brooke, the testing was through the roof, can you give any examples? Like what things were your team testing? And your partner, Nathan, husband, is a physiologist himself. So I imagine data is pretty key for your development and progression, right?
Yeah, definitely. There's obviously some testing that we do in the gym, which is really important, and it's great to get a bit of, data there and see how, different periods of the year and different parts of my training, how that, varies from time to time. So yeah, all my testing in the gym was better than it ever was, just in terms of drop jumps, counter movement jumps, Nordic testing for hamstring strength. And then in terms of, runway velocities, they were the best they ever were. I was hitting some velocities that I've never hit before. And then short approach jumps as well. Generally in training, I'll come off 10 or 12 strides, not a full run up, and measure those distances, as well as other exercises like standing long jumps or standing triple jumps. They're something that we really incorporate into training pretty frequently.
And all high demand activities, right? Incredible. The running velocities, can you share any of the numbers, or they're top secret, Brooke?
No, I'm happy to share. So throughout the 2016 athletic season, I think my max velocities that I was hitting on the runway were about 9.7 metres per second, consistently around the 9.6 metres per second, which in fact this season they were quite similar. The first season since 2016 that I was able to hit similar velocities, which is, it's promising. There's still room for improvement, I'm sure, and hopefully I can get this knee right and hit some better velocities this season.
Game on. Brooke, you mentioned the confidence and instilling that and self-belief. When you stand in an Olympic final, this campaign of Tokyo 2021/2020 was your second campaign. It's probably a very cliched question, but on the day in Olympic final, what percentage of psychological, Tim Gabbett's well-known sports scientist, recently shared this concept of psychological resilience, robustness. What percentage do you put down to that psychology in an Olympic final versus the obviously incredible physiological traits that these Olympic finalists have? Like, how much, if you had to put a percentage on it, would you attribute to it, Brooke?
Oh, in Tokyo, I feel like it could have been. It was very high. I'm really unsure how to answer that, but maybe 50-50, I'd say.
Well, that's a safe answer, Brooke, isn't it? You can't go wrong that way.
Yeah, I definitely can't go wrong. Tokyo was challenging in many ways because obviously the lead-in for me wasn't how I would have liked. I had a knee injury. I was in quite a lot of pain leading into the games and on the day. Yeah, so I knew that being in the right mind frame and trying to tell myself or just be, really positive with the way that I was speaking to myself and just, as I said, just instilling that confidence that I'd done the work even though I knew I hadn't. My body physically was not where it probably should have been or where I would have liked it to have been. But, yeah, I knew that if my mind was right, that would definitely, take care of the physical side of things.
Because I think every athlete, recreationally competitive, elite, at some point has stood on a start line at an event that's meaningful to them, knowing that they're not as prepared as they could be, either through life circumstances or injury or illness. And it is a real psychological barrier where you put yourself there, but you could have done more. So I was interested to hear your take on that, Brooke, because this is an Olympic Games and you still managed to jump, I think you said, your fourth or fifth best distance, career best distance. So in many ways, obviously that is an outstanding performance to get so close to your potential given the interrupted preparation.
Thank you. Yeah, I honestly, looking back at it, I don't know how I jumped that distance. Leading into the games, I had a couple of competitions up in Cairns in North Queensland and, I was just all over the place. I was so rusty. I'd barely done any run-up work. I hadn't done much jumping into the pit. My run-up was just so inconsistent. I had knee pain as well, which was just something to add on top of all of this. I'd spent a lot of time in the pool over winter here in Melbourne rather than being, in the sandpit or on the track. And it just wasn't how I would have liked things to have been. But yeah, as I said, I just had to, be really positive and tell myself that, even though things haven't, been the way that I would have liked, there's no way or no reason why I still can't make that final. I still can't be up there with the medals or, go that little bit better than how I went in Rio because, I'm a much mature athlete now and I feel like, I've learned how important it is to just have that right mindset and be really positive about, your situation regardless of, whether it is what you want or what you don't want.
Yeah, learning through repetition, the hard part about Olympic cycles is that the reps only come around every 4 years. It's and clearly with that performance in Tokyo, given your lead in, it's an exciting prospect for what you may be able to achieve in the coming years. Brooke, you said self-talk. You had to talk yourself into it there in Tokyo. What sort of things were you telling yourself? Because that's fascinating, right? You're telling yourself that you're prepared and ready, yet your heart says, well, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you a weird question. How were you deceiving yourself, Brooke? What was the language of self-deception?
It's a bit conflicting, isn't it? But yeah, I honestly was just telling myself that I was in 7 metre shape. I was going to make the final, just really, telling myself what I wanted to hear really. It really helps having such a big support network around you as well. My dad, who is also my coach, he's always trying to instill that confidence in me and just remind me of what I have achieved, what I can achieve. Yeah, I think that really helps a lot, especially in those times where me personally, I'm not sure whether I'm in the shape that I need to be in and you start losing a little bit of confidence there. So, yeah, it's so important to surround yourself with people that are going to be able to lift you up and just help, you be the athlete that you need to be and think the way that you need to be thinking as well.
You're listening to Brooke Stratton on this featured performer episode of the Physical Performance Show, sharing on her career highs, lows, and learn-ins. Now, on the topic of fueling, I recently caught up with co-founder of Precision Hydration, Andy Blow, back on episode 290, where Andy discussed the importance of athletes knowing their 3 levers: how much fluid they need, carbohydrate that they require, and the sodium that they need to replenish through their exercise sessions and races. It was a very popular expert edition, and I recently caught up with Andy to discuss some of the great new innovations that Precision Hydration are offering athletes, coaches, and practitioners to help strip away the mystery around athletes knowing their numbers. So Andy, the team are pressing on with some great innovations in the space. It's your competitive advantage, and that is the ability to really help athletes dial in their fueling and hydration strategies. And you've just released some really interesting and insightful case studies on the precisionhydration.com site.
Yeah, Brad, it's been a great project this last year, because what athletes want to know is how much fluid, how much sodium, how much carbohydrate they need to take in per hour. And we know from all the studies we've done, we know from all the scientific evidence out there that those numbers are quite varied between individuals. So what we've been working hard to do is pull together a bunch of case studies for athletes across a range of endurance sports, triathlon, running, cycling, swimming, to see how much fluid, how much sodium, how much carbohydrate are people taking in per hour, and then how successful they've been in their events. And the idea with these case studies isn't that they're up there for people to copy, but they're to get your head around the numbers that might work for you and to give you a platform to build it on. And then in conjunction with the tools that we've got on the website, like the online sweat test, the quick carb calculator, you can dive in and use those tools to get your numbers sorted out and start that trial and error process to see how much fluid, how much sodium, how much carb is going to work for you when you're out there competing in the summer heat.
Thanks, Andy. And if you happen to miss episode 290, knowing your numbers, do jump back. It was an expert edition full of learn-ins. And do take advantage of your first Precision Hydration order by using the code TPPS15 for 15% off your first order over at precisionhydration.com of their electrolytes or their all-new fuel range. You said that your father, Russell, your coach, which I think is just another brilliant part of your story, this relationship, he reminded you of what you have achieved and what you can achieve. Any examples? Was Dad in your ear saying, "Hey, Brooke, don't forget you're a finalist in Rio"?
Yeah, he'll be the first one to remind me, of what I've achieved over the years. And I think it's so nice having that and just having him be in my ear and just reminding me of these things, because it's so easy to forget about what you have achieved and some of the amazing things that you have done when you feel like you're not doing those things at that point in time, and you're in a little bit of a rut, or you're injured, or you're struggling to see the good in a situation. So yeah, I'm super grateful to have him. He's probably one of the most positive people that I have in my life, and yeah, to have him as my coach, it's really special.
I think what you just shared is very striking to many of us, because I find it fascinating. You can have a bio like yours, laden with career, with national titles, a national record, world championship finals, world indoors, junior world champs, and yet you hit a bit of an adversity point, and there's been layers for yourself with the injuries you mentioned, your knee pain, but also, which we'll discuss, your celiac diagnosis and your Hashimotos diagnosis. Yet we can so quickly lose confidence in our performance and our physical abilities through these seasons. What do you think it is that has us forget those things so easily? I even know, as a recreationally competitive, age group athlete, that you have one bad run or one bad result, and your mind can just all of a sudden start really laying it on that you don't have it anymore. And,
Yeah.
What do you think produces this? I find it fascinating.
I think you're exactly right, though. It's literally, over the years, I've realized that, if you do have a bad session or you do have a bad performance in a competition, it's not the end of the world, and it doesn't reflect on where you're at that given time. There's so many variables and so many factors that can influence how you perform or how you train. So you can't let one bad training session or one bad competition, reflect on the way that you see things, especially your confidence as well. And it's taken me a long time to actually realize this and take that on board. And I think having worked closely with a sports psychologist, he's enabled me to, be able to see the good in a bad situation, or be able to take positives out of a bad training session or a bad result. You can't always look at the bad. You've got to be able to take the good from it and the positives away from any situation. You might have a terrible jump session because you're fatigued because you've been training really hard, or you had a really heavy gym session the day before, and that's going to reflect on the distances you're going to jump in training. And that doesn't mean that you're necessarily not jumping well or you're in bad shape. It's because you're working hard and you're doing all the things outside of the pit that you need to do to get yourself to that next level. So I think it's really easy to lose confidence, but it's just as easy to gain it back.
Oh, wow, that's powerful. Any examples leading to Tokyo where you mentioned the Cairns meets, which were only weeks / at most 2 months, really, from memory, before Tokyo up there in North Queensland, where you said you were rusty, you weren't hitting your run up how you would like, etc. Like, were there any moments where the sports psychologist, your father, anyone else sort of said, "Hey, Brooke, anything that stands out to you where you're like, okay, I needed that pep talk"?
Yeah. There were many moments in Cairns where I was just super frustrated. I was just overthinking everything. I was, both in training and in the competitions that I was doing. The competitions I was jumping, anywhere from like 6 meters 20 to 6 meters 50. And this was, 3-4 weeks out from an Olympic Games. And it's not where I wanted to be at all. Because with me, I find, having great competitions and jumping good distances is what really helps boost my confidence and gives me that self-belief that I know I need leading into a major championships. And even though looking back on it, at the time, I was really disappointed with where things were at, and I was, stressed about it being so close to the Olympic Games. It also gave me, something to be able to work on. It allowed me to really break down the jump and, look at what I was doing on the run up and look at my takeoff position and really try and focus in on, the little 1%ers that could be changed, change for the better, obviously. So it was really just about using the time I had to really maximize that and just try and build as much confidence as I could.
You executed that well, but I think that's quite inspiring and motivating for so many of us, that you can turn things around quite quickly. And so much of it is, what's happening between the ears or psychologically. Brooke, the mechanics of jumping, before we discuss what lessons you've learned around the managing the Hashimotos and Celiacs, the mechanics of jumping. There's a large running listenership of the physical performance show, triathlon, distance running. Can you explain the mechanics? Like, how do you break down a jump? Like, I think it might be quite fun. What do you mentally say? What's an ideal lead-in look like?
So when I'm at the top of the runway, obviously long jump is quite a technical event. There's a lot of different elements to a long jump. You've got the run up or the approach, you've got the takeoff, and then you've obviously got the in-flight and landing. In long jump, probably the most important aspect is speed and having that momentum as you approach the board, and also not dishing off speed as you approach the board. So you want to try and hit the run up as fast as you can, build up as much velocity on the runway, and then obviously not hesitating for the board and just carrying that speed through into the jump, taking off with a nice tall posture, which is something that I've really had to work on over the years. I, got into some bad habits of really sticking my leg out in front of me and leaning back at takeoff, which, is basically like, breaking your speed. Yeah, that's really improved for me over the years. And then really the jump just takes care of itself. If you get the approach right, it'll just all transition into the jump. So, yeah, there's a fair bit to think about. But when I'm at the top of the runway, I just like to keep things pretty basic. As I said earlier, I tend to overthink a lot of things and things can get quite technical with long jumps. So, yeah, just try and break things down into small little cues and think about them on the top of the runway.
Segment it up, and the landing, I think we all look with great admiration at the skills involved. How do you get up and walk after jumping 7 meters? It's quite remarkable. But what are you thinking about as you're coming down, or are you so focused on getting that approach right, the takeoff, as you say, getting up, capturing the momentum you had in the approach, that you don't think about what's about to happen? Or what are the tips to come down and be able to walk?
Well, as I'm aging, it's getting harder and harder to be able to walk out of the sandpit. That's for sure. Yeah, I've been doing long jump for a long time now, but yeah, I really just try and keep things as basic as possible as I'm approaching the board. As I said, like, I don't want to be thinking about too much. And I guess this is what training's for as well, just being able to work on these things in training and, almost to the point where it becomes just natural for you. Yeah, for me, being able to do as much run-up work as possible and just get that consistency from start to finish has really helped over the years. Just, with that consistency and running the same from start to finish. I guess, as I said, like, if you get the run-up right, the jump and the landing will just take care of itself. And there are jumps that you don't get right, and it only really takes one jump to get everything right and to have those big performances and those big outcomes that you're looking for. And I guess for me in Perth, I really just got that. I got everything right, really. I had a 2.0 tailwind behind me. I had 1 centimetre to spare on the board, perfect speed on the runway, and that's what sort of reflected in that distance of 7 meters and 5 centimeters. And it just felt effortless, if anything. I jumped, it felt like I didn't even put in the effort, which is just crazy, and walked out of the pit feeling $1 million.
with a national record in the history books. Brooke, your diagnosis of Hashimoto's, maybe we start there. As a practicing clinician, physiotherapist, it's something that comes up from time to time with athletes and people. Can you just outline what led to your diagnosis, what your symptoms were, and what you've been able to now learn around managing the condition and how it affects performance?
Yeah, I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's disease in 2017. It was just after the World Championships in 2017 where I did place 6th in the women's long jump there. So I had a great performance there. I'd just come off a pretty significant injury to my foot. Didn't really have a great preparation leading into those games, but walked away with that result, which I was ecstatic about. But I was not feeling myself at all leading into those championships, and even post championships, I was experiencing quite significant fatigue and sluggishness, both at training and outside of training. I was really irritable as well. I was getting like joint pain, muscle aches, and muscle weakness. I also had a little bit of depression and anxiety, which I think was obviously associated with having undiagnosed Hashimoto's disease, and also brain fog as well, just not being able to concentrate or think clearly. And that's what led me to go and see my GP, get a blood test. I had no idea that I had Hashimoto's disease, but I knew something wasn't quite right. So I was really glad to have had this diagnosis and was sent off to see an endocrinologist who put me on some thyroid medication to help manage my Hashimoto's.
There must have been a relief of sorts to know that what you perceived and were experiencing as things not being right, there was something missing. And it's an important pickup, because obviously, as you would know probably better than anyone now, it's not something that you want to really leave undiagnosed.
No, definitely not. It was really affecting me more than what I initially thought at the time. And to this day, it's all about just managing my dose of medication. It's been a pretty big roller coaster, actually. Things can change really quickly. And, I've had periods of time where, being on the same medication dose, I've just been feeling those same symptoms. I'd go get a blood test and my thyroid stimulating hormone was just not in a great place. So I've had to, there's been plenty of times where I've had to alter my medication dose. It's just really trial and error, really. And it's been really difficult managing that, being a professional athlete, as well as also managing celiac disease at the same time. It's part of sport. It's part of life. Life's going to throw you challenges, but you've just got to be able to do what you can to overcome them and manage them. And that's what I've had to do over the years.
And the celiac's diagnosis, Brooke, that came before the Hashimoto's diagnosis. How old were you at that point when that was unearthed?
I was diagnosed with celiac disease in 2013. So I was 19 years of age at the time. I'd been suffering from associated symptoms of celiac disease for almost 2 years. I was in a really bad way, actually. I had a really successful junior athletics career where I was sort of seeing quite a linear progression from year to year. And then, all of a sudden things started to, go off track a little bit. I was experiencing quite extreme fatigue. I had vitamin and mineral deficiencies. I was getting quite bad stomach bloating and stomach pain. Was also experiencing irritability and brain fog. And at this point in time, I was back and forth at the doctors on numerous occasions, just trying to figure out what was going on with my body because I knew something wasn't right. And really the only thing that was showing up in the blood tests that I had was just having vitamin and mineral deficiencies. So low iron, low B12, low vitamin D levels. And deep down, I knew it was more than that. But at the time, I was like, okay, well, maybe this is explaining why I'm feeling this way. But it just got to the point where my symptoms were progressively getting worse and worse. And I knew something was really not right. Went back to the GP and was sent off to see a gastroenterologist who sent me off to get a gastroscopy and a follow-up blood test, which diagnosed me with celiac disease.
And another important pickup, certainly for someone that's then forging a career in professional sport, not been able to necessarily have that absorption, if you like, of some of these key nutrients, calcium being one, and bone health being a big consideration for an athlete like yourself. So that's obviously was an important part of your development, picking that up. And anything you'd add to or share to people out there that are managing celiac in terms of their own sporting success and progressions, what would be your top tip?
My top tip would definitely be don't think that it will hold you back in any way. For me, over the years, I've been able to achieve some pretty incredible things with celiac disease. It's all about just managing it as best as you can, doing all the right things to avoid any gluten exposure, but also, not thinking that it will hold you back in any way, because it certainly won't.
You're listening to episode 298 of The Physical Performance Show, brought to you by Polar. Polar are a sports technology company who build world-class heart rate monitors and GPS watches for people who take their health, fitness, and sports performance seriously, aka The Physical Performance Show listener. Polar have an incredible heritage. Headquartered in Finland, they have been the global driving force behind scientific wearables for over 4 decades. They are the pioneers in and the world leaders in heart rate measurement technology. Their products provide you with the 24/7 monitoring to enable you to plan better, train smarter, recover fully, so you can be at your physical best. And if you are looking for the go-to multi-sport watch, do not go past the Polar Vantage V2. Engineered to enable athletes of all levels to exceed every expectation, Polar Vantage V2 is a powerful convergence of minimalist design and innovative technology built on decades of scientific research to create Polar's most formidable sports watch to date. What's more, it's now available in a beautiful Polar Red. So jump over to polar.com if you're in the market for your next multi-sport watch and check out the Polar Vantage V2. You will not be disappointed. Support for today's show also comes from the Physical Performance Show's very own Learn-Ins membership. If you're enjoying the show and would like to support production ongoing of the show, you can do so from just $5 per month over at patreon.com. By becoming a patron of the show, we'll grant you complimentary access to our back catalogue of live stream events, including Dr. Stephen Seiler, All Things Polarised Training, Dr. Shona Halson, Optimising Recovery, and more recently, Rinny McGregor, Fueling the Endurance Athlete. What's more, we'll also grant you complimentary access to all of our upcoming live stream events. They're normally ticketed at $49 per person per live stream, so becoming a patron of the show just makes sense. And a massive shout out to this week's new patron, Kyle Shipton. Kyle, thank you for your support of the show. It means a lot. Support for today's show also comes from Pogo Physio. We exist to help you get back to your physical best performance. If you are an endurance athlete struggling with bone, tendon, or joint-related concerns, then jump over to pogophysio.com.au/telehealth, and there you can schedule your 45-minute online appointment. For now, let's jump back with this week's featured performer on episode 298, Brooke Stratton, national long jump record holder and dual Olympic finalist, sharing on her highs, lows, and learn-ins. Your starting little in athletics was at the age of 5 and really have progressed from there. But I did read in preparing for this that you always dreamt of going to the Olympics. What was your first Olympic dream? How old were you and what was it?
Yeah, that's correct. So I was in grade 1 actually in 2000, so the year of the Sydney 2000 Olympic Games. I was sitting at home in the lounge room watching the Olympics, and I watched Kathy Freeman win the gold medal for Australia in the 400 metres. And that was honestly the moment in time that I dreamt of getting to the Olympic Games. I wanted to be like Kathy Freeman. I remember all through primary school, I would get asked what I wanted to be when I grew up, and I would just say I wanted to be an Olympian. I wanted to be like Kathy Freeman. So that was a real pivotal moment in my life that allowed me to have that dream. And I guess the rest is history now.
I imagine your school teachers have reached out with your success over the years.
Yeah, they have actually. Yeah, I've been back to my primary school and my secondary school as well, and been able to catch up with some of the teachers, and it's really cool being able to to get back there and just show them what I've been able to do with myself.
Absolutely. And Kathy Freeman, have you had a chance to connect with Kathy along your journey today?
I have actually. In 2011, she actually mentored me for a year through the Sports Australia Hall of Fame. I won a scholarship and was able to have her mentor me for a year through that scholarship program. So, I was obviously stoked by that and learnt so much from her and the amazing athlete she was.
Well, you know what the next question is going to be, Brooke, right? What did you learn from Kathy Freeman?
That's a great question. She really just told me to, be true to myself. Obviously, it takes a lot of hard work and sacrifices over the years, and most importantly, just believe in yourself and have that self-belief that, I guess I've been able to have over the years.
And what a great mentor to have. I mean, that run in Sydney 2000, what a legacy it's set up. I think now we are really going through a purple patch in Australian athletics. How many other athletes on the Australian team at the moment were sitting in their lounge rooms watching Kathy Freeman win gold, perhaps?
Oh, I could imagine many of them around my age were in the exact same position as me. And I think that's why it's so important for the younger generation to have athletes like Kathy Freeman to look up to, and, even athletes that are competing for Australia on the world stage currently. It's, there's nothing more inspiring than being able to watch athletes from your own country achieve what they're able to achieve.
Yeah, I think the exciting thing is our future looks so bright. We had our best Australian athletics performance at Olympic Games in Tokyo, if I'm correct, and we're just set for great things, I'd think. Brooke, the darkest day in your career, we should pick that up before we jump into the performance round. What's been the darkest day in your career and why?
I think the darkest day in my career would have been the World Championships in 2019. So I just finished the long jump final. I was really struggling with my health at this point in time. I think I was also a little bit burnt out as well. It was a really long season. World Championships were in October, which was quite late actually in comparison to a lot of the other major championships that we have, which are generally around that sort of July, August period. Yeah, I had a few competitions leading into this World Championships in Doha, and I wasn't feeling myself mentally and physically, and walked away from these championships underperforming. I still made the long jump final. I placed 10th. A lot of people probably think that that's a fantastic achievement. And, I walked away from that championships, still proud of what I was able to achieve, all things considered. But I knew that, I didn't jump to the best of my ability. And there were obviously reasons for that. But I remember, just feeling just absolutely gutted, feeling like I'd let so many people down. I remember reading a newspaper article that day saying Brooke Stratton finishes a disappointing 10th place in the women's long jump final in Doha. And I was just in a real rut. And I knew that I just needed a big break away from training. I needed to get my health back on track. I think looking back on that, I'd probably say that was one of the darkest days or darkest times of my career.
That word, that adjective, disappointing, clearly that left a bit of a mark on you to read that. It seems like such a careless use of language in a media story, but that obviously impacted you to be labelled a disappointing performance.
Yeah, and it's really interesting as well. You look at my performance placing 10th on the world stage, but then there was also another athlete that placed 10th on the world stage as well at the same competition, but mine was seen as disappointing and theirs was seen as a fantastic result. So it's interesting the different ways people view, different athletes and their results in different ways. But yeah, to have read that, I obviously was already feeling a little bit down about my performance and knew that I could have done better. But yeah, to have read that in a major newspaper here in Australia, it was pretty disheartening. But I knew at the time that, I couldn't let it get me down. I just needed to ignore all that noise and just really focus on trying to get my health back on track.
It's interesting though. I think it's a good reminder for all of us. We might have our perceptions of what an athlete's capable of, or anyone for that matter, in any walk of life, and therefore an expectation attached to that. But obviously there were different expectations between your result and the other athlete, and therefore it permeates into how we view that result. One's perceived as disappointing and the other's perceived as a breakthrough, or fantastic. So it's fascinating, isn't it? Brooke, are you ready for today's session? This is the performance round. Rapid fire questions coming your way. You ready?
I'm more ready than ever.
Training session most disliked?
I'd probably have to say any sort of speed endurance session. So any reps that go beyond 100 meters. So whether it's like 120s or 200-meter reps. And
you might do how many reps? Broad question, I know.
Not many, to be honest. If I'm doing 120s, maybe anywhere from 6 to 10, or 200s, probably the same amount of reps. It doesn't sound like much.
But it's how you're wired, right? Training session most loved, Brooke?
There's so much variety when it comes to training for long jump, but I'd probably have to say my favourite session would be my jump sessions. Yeah, just because I get so much joy out of being in the sandpit and working on the technical elements of my jump.
And how many jumps might you do in a jump workout or jump session?
Not many, to be honest. So at the moment, or not at the moment, but when I'm in, a pretty normalized training phase, I'll jump once a week, and that will probably only involve maybe 6 jumps off a short approach, as well as some run-up work as well. So not a lot less than what people probably think.
But then when you look at the mechanics of the forces involved, it's makes sense. Brooke, favourite pre-competition meal?
I wouldn't quite say it's my favourite, but my go-to is tuna and rice. It's just a staple for me. And obviously being celiac and having celiac disease, it's probably the safest option and something that's, easily digested for me.
Tuna and rice. Bedtime, morning time, what's your routine look like there, Brooke?
Bedtime is generally anywhere from 10 p.m. to 11 p.m. And wake time would be around 7:30 most mornings. Most of my training sessions are done either mid-morning or in the evening, so thankful I don't have to get up super early.
Well played. Smart athlete. Who's the athlete that Brooke Stratton most admires and why?
So I guess growing up, the athlete that I most admired was Freeman. I guess at that point in time, I was really young, and she really made me realise what was possible for an Australian athlete. So, I'd definitely say Freeman.
Toughest competitor you've ever competed with? Who and why?
I'd probably, on the world stage, I'd have to say Brittany Rees. She's a multiple Olympic and World Championship medalist. She's a real fierce competitor and always brings her A game to every competition. So I'd probably have to say her. Best recovery tip, Brooke? Best recovery tip, probably just using ice. Ice has been my best friend over the last probably 10, 12 months. I feel like it's just a quick and easy way to recover post-session. Do you mean ice in local regions of your body or ice, cold baths, cold immersion therapy, etc., or both? Not a fan of ice. To be honest, I'm a bit weak. So just icing, different parts of your body, Local bits. One word to describe Brooke Stratton's competition style. One word. Probably have to say determined. Is that a way to describe it? I like it. It would fit with the story that I know. How would you describe being in the zone, Brooke? Being in the zone, I'd probably say just feeling really focused and just blocking out all the noise around you. Feeling really focused. When was the last time you were in the zone? Would have been in Tokyo. I don't think I've been in the zone since Tokyo. And final question in the performance round here, Brooke. We know that epic training sessions don't make champions, but what's the hardest session you've ever done? The hardest session I've ever done? I'd probably have to say 10 200-metre reps on a 2-minute cycle. For a long jumper, it's pretty crazy. That's tough. It probably doesn't sound like much, but for someone that only runs, 35 metres down a runway, it's 200 metres is a long way. It's out of the comfort zone. Brooke, well done. You've survived. Brooke, every guest of the show issues listeners with a physical challenge for the week. So what is Brooke Stratton's physical challenge going to be? Physical challenge. I guess if we keep it consistent to the event that I do, long jump, I reckon a good challenge would be a standing long jump. Oof. If anyone's up for that. All right. That is a great physical test. And I think it would be fun if we can engage the listeners of the show to do a standing long jump test and maybe share the results with you on social. You're easily found Brooke Stratton at Brooke Stratton on Instagram and on Twitter, I believe. But can you just explain how people are to do this? Stand behind a line, stand in start and jump as far as you can and land with both feet. That's literally exactly how it's done. Yep. You can either do it into a sandpit if you have access to one, or you can just do it on a flat surface. Yeah, the aim is just to jump as far as you can. And measurement, are you taking it from the toe or the heel? You're taking it from the heel. Okay, yeah. That's an important distinction. And Brooke, do enlighten us as to your own standing
jump record? What are we looking at?
My standing long jump PB is 2 meters 82.
And that is why you are an Olympic finalist, a multiple Olympic finalist, and our national record holder. Outstanding. So do take on that physical challenge and jump on social and certainly let Brooke know. Brooke, every guest of the show also answers this one set question, and that is, if you could boil everything you've learnt to date through your career that's still developing into one piece of advice to help the listener of this show perform at their physical best, what is Brooke Stratton's single piece of advice going to be?
My single piece of advice would be to listen to those around you in your support team. They know exactly what they're doing, and you need to be able to put your 100% trust into them. And that's something that I've really learnt throughout my journey of being a professional athlete. You need to use those people around you, because at the end of the day, they've got your best interests at heart, and they're there to, make your journey that little bit easier for you and just put you in the right direction.
Wise words. Brooke, you did mention that Kathy Freeman made you realise what's possible. How can Brooke Stratton pay that forwards to make listeners of this show realise what's possible? What would be your advice on that front? A little bit different to your top tip. What's your advice in making people realise what their potential may be?
My advice on making people realise what their potential might be would be, just keep showing up every day. For me, I had the dream of getting to an Olympic level from such a young age, and the least I could do over the years was just show up every day, be consistent in my training, do all the little 1%ers, and that really allowed me to get to that level that I have got to, without even knowing how much potential I really did have and how much talent I did have. So I think just, showing up, putting in the hard work, that's really what it takes.
And we're thankful that you showed up to the Physical Performance Show today, Brooke. And I am curious, I'm a father of 3 daughters, and as per any parent, our children are the apple of our eyes. But what's been one really special moment you've shared with your father, your coach Russell, over the years that really stands out?
Oh gosh, there's been so many. It's hard to pinpoint just the one. I think most recently it would have been jumping that 683 distance in Tokyo, and having him sitting there on the sidelines and just seeing his face light up and seeing the amount of joy that, me succeeding and me, being able to compete for my country and achieve what I achieved, just seeing how much that meant to him as my father and my coach. Nothing can beat that. Very special.
Wow, that's brilliant. And Brooke, you did post a great photo and tribute to your dad's input into your career to date over on your Instagram gallery. So I recommend everyone jump over and give Brooke a follow. You in many ways are an undersung hero of Australian athletics with your performances. So I think more people knowing your story is a great thing. And so, Brooke, thank you for stopping by today and contributing to the Physical Performance Show. We wish you all the best for this next big block of campaigns.
Thank you so much, Brad. Really appreciate you having me on.
So there you have it, another episode of the Physical Performance Show, and I trust and I know that you enjoyed Brooke's share-ins. Do jump over and give Brooke a follow on Instagram at Brooke Stratton, STRATTON, and tag Brooke in on your forward jump best effort, aka the physical challenge for the week. You can also tag in the show at Physical Performance Show over on the socials. We love seeing the podsies, a screenshot of the episode that you're enjoying. Mix it up this week with a recording of your best forward jump effort. I'll do the same. I've got to tell you though, it will not be pretty and it will not be rivaling Brooke's best effort, that's for sure. A massive thanks as always to the great folk who make this show possible: Daryl Misson, our audio engineer, Susan Wilkin on all things show administration, and Matthew Olding on all things show graphic design. Now, it's annual feedback time for the Physical Performance Show, and we'd love to know how we can improve the listener experience. Jump over to the bio link over on Instagram, and there you'll find our brief survey. Let us know what it is that you enjoy about the show and what it is that we can do to improve the experience. And don't forget, if you'd like to support production of the show, become a Physical Performance Show Learnings member from just $5 per month over at patreon.com. It helps the show's longevity and quality. It's a practical support. And of course, we want to give back to you via more learnings to be gleaned from our live stream back catalogue and upcoming live stream events. Now, we have a smorgasbord of learnings coming your way in our upcoming episodes. So until then, keep pursuing your physical best performance. I'm Brad Beer, and this has been the Physical Performance Show.